Good evening, my fellow Americans. It is the 8th of May edition of A Quiet Rage, and I want to start with a quote by the great American writer Mark Twain. Give a man a reputation as an early riser, and he can sleep till noon. Now, why do I begin with that? Maybe not as well known as it ought to be. That quote from Mark Twain. Because I've been thinking, not just for the last week since my previous episode, but actually for the last 2 weeks since that episode that went, to the moon. Something that was reinforced to me numerous times in the comment section of my episode 2 weeks ago, the I Have Questions for MAGA episode. Because in that episode I said that Donald Trump is an idiot, which he is, and he's not a good businessman, because he's not. And what was reinforced many, many times is something that I've known for a long time, and really kind of realized a few years ago, I think certainly during the first Trump presidency, and that is that the right that supports Trump, they focus on his reputation, whereas the left and those of us, those in the center and on the right who don't support Trump, focus instead on his resume. And a reputation is not the same thing as a resume. I've heard it said in various ways that a reputation like his doesn't come from nowhere. I've heard people say nobody was claiming he was a racist before he ran for president or before he became president. A reputation, it's true, has to come from somewhere. And it can certainly be crafted. And in his case, that's exactly what has happened. Let me give you an example that is not the president, our president, the president of these United States. An example I'm sure you're aware of. And I'm almost certain that I'm going to get pushback from all sides on this one. And that is the reputation that was given, not earned, given to Mother Teresa. I mean to say, Mother Teresa was not a good person. She was not a role model. She was not someone to whom anyone should be looking up. She was a fanatic. She was, you might say, a fraud. Some people, she has been accused of fraud. Let me just get started with the receipts right away. Before I started recording, I did a Google search, an image search, and I invite you, I'll put a few of them up on the screen. I did a Google image search for Mother Teresa, Home of the Dying. You might ask why I would use that as my search criteria. Well, It's because that is the name. Excuse me. It is actually the original name for the hospice that she founded in, and I'm not going to pronounce this correctly, in India. I'm not going to butcher the name of the city. The very first hospice that she founded, it was called Mother Teresa's Caligat Home for the Dying Destitutes. That's what she called it. It was later renamed the Home of the Pure Heart because, Home for the Dying and Destitute isn't, doesn't conjure up cheerful images. So, I did said image search, and here are some of the images. What you see here is not a state-of-the-art medical facility. You don't see heart monitors and IV bags and medical professionals in clean uniforms with rubber gloves and face masks to prevent the spread of disease from person to person in the facility. You don't even, you see beds, cots, really. She did not build state-of-the-art medical facilities. She built places for people to die just slightly better than being out on the street. Now, granted, dying slowly inside in a building with some kind of bed and some kind of food and some kind of care is better than lying on the street. I will grant that. And having actually myself been to India and seen just briefly some of the destitution in that country, yeah, it's a little bit better to be in a home for the dying and destitute rather than outside on the street. But there are estimations that she raised by donation somewhere north of $30 million. She took in millions of dollars a year. We don't actually know how much money her organization, how much money people actually donated, thinking that it was going to Mother Teresa and or her endeavors. We have no idea. There's no way of knowing. The Catholic Church is not going to open their books and let us audit any sort of anything about that. But she could have, with the money that she raised, she could have built medical facilities that were capable of treating people. She didn't even, there are reports that doctors would come in occasionally to these places, but there were no nurses or doctors on staff. The nuns of her order did the best they could, but they didn't necessarily have any medical training. There are reports of needles being reused after being washed with tap water, people wearing soiled clothing for days on end, dishes and soiled clothing being washed next to each other in the same room. I could go on. Let's stick with the money. Famously, she accepted a donation from the Duvalier family, the Papa Doc Duvalier, being the president at the time of Haiti. Why I mention that? Well, the Duvalier family, during their time ruling Haiti, took massive amounts of money from the country. They were eventually exiled and took all that money with them. The country of Haiti suffered under them and has suffered since because of the damage done by the Duvalier family. She took money from them, wasn't concerned about where it had actually come from. The fact that it was taken from a country of poor people, that money could have done some good in Haiti. Probably wasn't going to, but it certainly didn't help people in India either. Not really. Not as much as it could have. She also took money from a man named Charles Keating, who was convicted in a savings and loan scam in, I think it was California, in the 80s. I think it was the 80s. And there was some effort to contact her and try and say, hey, we understand that you took money from this guy that's is convicted of having cheated people out of their life savings. We'd like, maybe you could return that money so we can make these people whole. She just didn't manage to pick up the phone. That particular call came in. She won the Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah, that's true. But if I remember correctly, when President Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize, people on the right weren't super impressed by that. So I guess I'm not super impressed by Mother Teresa having won the Nobel Peace Prize either, because, as I already said, she took money from terrible people, laundered it into who knows where. There's no accounting for it. And she didn't use it to really actually help anybody. She thought that suffering brought you closer to Jesus, and that suffering was a path to redemption. So if you got a disease, that was God's way of bringing you closer to him. Anyway, terrible person. She was a fan of suffering. She was a fanatic. When you are awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, you have to go give a speech. You can't just take the prize. You have to give a speech. And she did. I'm going to read a little bit of her speech. Quote, "And I feel one thing I want to share with you all. The greatest destroyer of peace today is the cry of the innocent unborn child. For if a mother can murder her own child in her own womb, what is left for you and for me to kill each other?" End quote. Further on, where did it go now? She tried to claim that, I've lost the quote, but she says, let's replace abortion with adoption. A lovely thought, but completely ignoring the fact that abortion is a medical procedure which is frequently used to assist in ending a pregnancy that that needs help in fully terminating. That a miscarriage has occurred, but not fully miscarried. That she made abortion a black and white issue, and it is not. It is a gray. It is a spectrum. There are many, many reasons and many, many justifications. We could talk about abortion. That's going to be a whole nother episode at one point. But this woman getting up in front of the United Nations and telling the world that she thinks the greatest destroyer of peace is abortion. while living in a country that even in the 80s and 90s, population was absolutely exploding, exacerbating the poverty and the squalor and the pollution and the overcrowding in that country. A much smarter man than I, Mr. Christopher Hitchens, of whom I am a huge fan, and I will link in the description a video of him at a library making comments about Mother Teresa. He was much more informed on the subject than I. He actually made a documentary about it. I might link that as well if I can find it. But he makes the point that if you give women control over the rate at which they reproduce, rather than having that forced upon them by their husbands or by the men, by the patriarchy. And it doesn't have to be through abortion. It could be contraception, it could be safer sex practices, outlawing child brides. If you give women the ability to control when they have children, the floor of your society will rise all by itself. And you can do other things to help it. But when women are not chained to their own womb and the results thereof, society improves. When families have as many children as they can support, rather than just having children constantly, things improve. And she was against that. She was also in an open letter to the country of Ireland when they were considering when in the mid-90s, when Ireland was considering the issue of divorce and whether it should be legal or not. She wrote an open letter to Ireland, to the people of Ireland, saying in part, quote, "Breaking the vow of marriage to be faithful until death is not only against true love, but it also hurts the children in a special way," unquote. Never mind that many a divorce has freed not just the wife, but the children as well from an abusive, and I shouldn't even say that. Many a divorce has freed a spouse and children, and the children thereof, from the abusive, physically, mentally, verbally, financially abusive tendencies of the other spouse. She had no concern for that. You've made a vow, you have to keep it, no matter what. Even if your spouse is an awful, horrible person, if you are in a loveless, abusive, dead-end marriage, doesn't matter. Stick it out, because you made a promise that you would. Never mind that your spouse is you might argue, not upholding their end of the deal. Anyway, so those are my receipts, and Mother Teresa, as I said, not a good person, a fanatic and a fraud, preying on, not preying, but, well, yeah, preying on, she was not a good person. She used the suffering of others to burnish her own reputation, to raise millions of dollars for, we don't know. We don't know where it went. We don't even know how much. And she was against two of the things, divorce and family planning, that have helped to free untold numbers of women just like her from bondage, from a horrible situation. Now, doesn't matter if she knew what it was really like around the world for the people that she was trying to keep in these, on an endless cycle of reproduction and in loveless, violent, horrible marriages. It doesn't matter. She was wrong in all of these things. She was wrong. But she had a reputation, and in fact was canonized, was made a saint faster than just about it. I think the quickest canonization of anyone in Catholic Church history, if not the fastest, one of the fastest. And in fact, I think it was Pope John Paul was Pope when she died, and fast-tracked her canonization and even reduced the traditional criteria for sainthood. I believe it was previously at least 2 miracles had to be posthumously attested to you to be sainted, to be canonized. And so it was just one miracle was all that was required. And I don't remember, I didn't look it up, but I do remember a little bit of the story. It was a woman who had a terminal illness of some, I think it was a cancer, and allegedly she held a picture or an image or a carving or whatever of Mother Teresa to her stomach. I think she had some kind of stomach cancer or intestinal cancer or something like that, and allegedly that cured her. Never mind that her husband and her doctors both explained, no, she was on a medical regimen that we know why she was healed. That doesn't matter. We need Mother Teresa to be Saint Teresa. So let's fast track this. Let's rubber stamp it. And she has the reputation anyway. It's fine. Don't worry about the resume. See what I mean? We've been telling ourselves as a society, as a society, a global society, since I was a child, that Mother Teresa is a wonderful person, a godly person who cares for the poor. She was none of those things. But she has that reputation. So you watch. In the comment section, people are going to come for my neck because I dared to say that Mother Teresa wasn't a good person. You watch. So, let's talk a little bit more about the President of these United States, President Trump, our president. As I said, I had Navy buddies. I remember one in particular tried to make the claim that nobody ever accused President Trump of being a racist until he was elected president, or until he was running for president. Simply not true. People in New York City knew he was racist way back when he took out a full-page ad in, I think it was the New York Times. One of the New York newspapers, anyway. And what did he do with that full-page ad? He, a private citizen having nothing to do with the situation whatsoever, took out a full-page ad calling for what was formerly known as the Central Park Five and now known as the Exonerated Five. 5 young men, I think it was 4 black men and 1, I think, Hispanic, Somebody will correct me. They had been accused of raping a young woman. And this man, Donald Trump, private citizen, having nothing to do with the case whatsoever, took out a full-page ad in a newspaper calling for these 5 young men to be put to death. That's a lynching, is what he wanted. You won't convince me that it's not. Sorry. That's a lynching. He's calling for a lynching. He's not a good businessman. He's just not. I'm going to read now from a Los Angeles Times article, and I will link it in the description so you can all have a look. I talked about casinos in that episode 2 episodes ago, and people told me I was an idiot. Here we go. The Trump Taj Mahal, which was built and owned by President Trump, then just Mr. Trump, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 1991. The Trump Plaza, the Trump Castle, and the Plaza Hotel, all owned by Trump at the time, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 1992. THCR, Trump Hotels and Casino Resorts, which was founded by Mr. Trump in 1995, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2004. Trump Entertainment Resorts Incorporated, the new name given to Trump Hotels and Casino Resorts after its 2004 bankruptcy, again declared bankruptcy in 2009. That's just casinos and resorts. Let's go on. Here's a list of Trump's businesses that have failed. Trump Shuttle Incorporated. I believe that was an airline. Launched by Trump in 1989, defaulted on its loans in 1990, and ceased to exist by 92. Trump University, founded by Trump in 2005, ceased operations amid lawsuits and investigations regarding the company's business practices in 2011. Trump Vodka, introduced in 2005 and discontinued in 2011. Trump Mortgage LLC, a financial services company founded by Trump in 2006, ceased operations in 2007. GoTrump.com, which could also read GotRump.com. Did nobody spell check that? Did nobody anyway. GoTrump.com, a travel site founded by Trump in 2006, ceased operations in 2007. Trump Steaks, a brand of steak and other meats founded by Trump in 2007, discontinued sales 2 months after its launch. And then there's to me, what is a well-known story that the producers for The Apprentice, when they went to Trump Tower to start talking to the Donald about how this show was going to work, walked into offices with chipped and broken furniture and old carpet and empty offices. He was given a reputation as a good businessman. He is not actually a good businessman. It's well known that he would just not pay people, just contractors. He would just not pay them, knowing that it would cost them more in lawyer fees and legal fees to go after him in court than they would actually make, so they would just give up. That's not a good businessman. That's a cheat. That's a piece of shit. That is a subpar human. And as I talked about in the episode I've referred to, when it comes to economics, President Trump is an idiot. How do I know that? Well, I don't know if you've seen, but the port of Seattle is empty. Long Beach, California, all those ships that used to come from bringing any number of goods and from China, they're not coming anymore. They've stopped. Dock workers, longshoremen are getting laid off. So that's not helping them economically. And he has blinders on, which is part of his being an idiot. He can see maybe this much of the picture. The rest of it is missing completely to him. He is oblivious because he's an idiot. Any supplier will tell you about now is when you start placing orders for Christmas, so that the factories that make all the toys and the knickknacks in China can make them, and they can, because that takes time, and they can get they build up a stock, and then they get shipped over here, and then they're here in time for Thanksgiving and Black Friday. They're ready. They pull them out of their warehouses and they put them on the shelves. You don't snap your fingers and say, I want toys for Christmas, and they show up. It takes months and months of prior planning. And you've got people in the Trump administration saying, well, the girls can have 2 dolls instead of 100 or whatever. Sure. Do American children have too much stuff? Absolutely. But that's a let them eat cake attitude if I've ever heard one. And Trump has also basically said, we used to sell $1 billion worth of stuff to China. A lot of it agricultural products. Hey, red states, farming states, you're not selling your product to China right now, are you? And Trump has said that we used to sell something. He said something along the lines of, we used to sell $1 billion worth of stuff to China, and we're not right now because of these tariffs. And so we're basically making $1 billion. How? If a thing is not being purchased, we're not making any money. If corn and soybeans and beef and pork is sitting rotting, unable to be shipped to the country that traditionally would have bought it from us, we are losing money. And there have been articles about small companies that are single point suppliers for the widget that they make, but they need a part from China, and now the cost of getting a regular shipment from China of that widget that they use to make their product is way too high to do business. So they've canceled their orders, and they're no longer making their widgets. They're no longer using their widgets, Chinese widgets, to make their Doomafidgies. So they shut down their Doomafidgi business, and the 3 companies that they supply their Doomafidgis to make their Whoozawhatsits, they no longer have a supplier of their Doomafidgis. So now widgets are sitting on the dock in China, not being bought. Doomafidgis are not being manufactured with those widgets here in the US, and the Doomafidgi company is closing its doors and laying off all of its people and not supplying Doomafidgis to the Whoozawhatsit makers. So the Whoozawhatsits are not getting made, and their businesses are probably going to go under or have to raise their prices to get their Doomafidgis from somewhere else. It's a fucking system. It's all connected, and only an idiot like Donald Trump, the president of these United States, our president, only an idiot like him doesn't see that. That it's interconnected, that supply and demand are related to each other, and you can't just turn things off and then turn them back on again. I hope you've got enough toilet paper. Remember all the hoarding from 2020? That's going to happen again. Because we re-elected a complete fucking moron to the White House. And he's going to drive our economy into the ground. When he first announced his tariffs, what did the stock market do? It fucking tanked. Why? Because people that do this shit for a living, professional investors, understand that it's bad. And yeah, when he put a 90-day pause on all of them, what did the stock market do? It went back up. Because that gave an opportunity for suppliers to buy the last, like, okay, give me everything you can right now at these prices, because these tariffs are coming back. We know this. We don't have any trade deals yet. Do we? No, we don't. President Trump claimed we had over 200 trade deals in one news conference or quote or whatever. There are 195 countries in this world. How are we making 200 trade deals? He's lying to you. Those are my receipts. Believe me or not, buy the reputation instead of the resume. That's up to you. But I encourage you not to. I encourage you, whoever it is, be it a pious religious icon, a businessman or woman, a entrepreneur of some sort, a friend, a family member, don't just buy the reputation. Look at the resume. What are they actually about? And don't let anybody tell you that the reputation is more important than the resume, because it's simply not. If, like me, you are fed up of people buying the reputation of our moron president, then keep your powder dry and keep that quiet rage. Good night, my fellow Americans.